Welcome in to the PFF NFL Podcast. It is championship week. So welcome. Let's talk some football and maybe even some free agency at the end, Sam.
Yes. Free agency is cooking for everybody that isn't still playing football.
That's the thing.
Most of the NFL.
There's only 4 teams left, and I know everybody wants our hard-hitting analysis on what's going to happen and how it's going to happen and all of that stuff. But we got to look ahead. We have to give Browns fans and Bears fans and Seahawks fans, we got to give them something at the end. So we'll
Bless them.
Give a little bit of a look forward to some free agency and what's going to happen.
Sounds good.
You know, who's going to be available. So you ready to get right into the action?
Yeah.
All right. What's the first game this week? It's the
That's
AFC,
a good question.
right?
Which way does it go?
It's the AFC.
Okay.
This week. The Chiefs are hosting the Tennessee Titans, just as we thought coming into the year.
Of course. They're both rematches.
Do you remember the time we told Titans fans that we were going to give up on them? I think we were going to kick them off the podcast.
Yeah, but that was
Titans in
because
general.
Mariota was there. Once they got rid of Mariota.
Is that fair?
Yes.
I feel bad.
They were 2-4.
They were 2-4 and just doing the opposite of what we expected every single week. It was horrible.
Look, circumstances changed, so our analysis changed.
And obviously, Ryan Tannehill brings some stability to the Tennessee Titans in their offense. So let's discuss this game. The Titans on a roll right now. And as I was saying the other day, the number 2 most efficient passing attack. That is the key. There's a lot of people saying PFF. You guys said passing teams win. Look at the top 5 passing teams. They're not even here. Look at the Bucs. They can't win any games. They got all the passing yards. Never said throw for 5,000 yards and you're in. It's the most efficient passing attacks.
Yeah,
that's it. And that's what the Titans have. That's what the Chiefs have.
Right. So a lot of these, we've seen graphics, we've seen analysis that, hey, look at all the top rushing teams. They all made the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. So you can paint these pictures in a lot of different ways. The first thing we need to do is to stop looking at just overall cumulative numbers.
Right.
Because they don't necessarily mean anything, right? Yes, these teams rushed the most. They also rushed the most in terms of attempts. So, of course, they rushed the most. Like, you know what I mean? So let's everybody knows this, right? This is like basic NFL statistics. The first thing we do when we want to get a little bit more smart than morons is move past cumulative numbers and look at, attempt numbers, look at efficiency numbers.
Stop insulting the people.
I'm not insulting
Not
I'm
our
insulting,
listeners.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Other people.
The other folks.
The first step in getting slightly smarter at this is we move away from cumulative numbers and we look at rate statistics, right? So yards per attempt, yards per carry. This is like step 101, right? So when we get to more advanced numbers, the same thing is true, right? You still need to look at the rate stuff to actually figure out what you're talking about. So yes, a bunch of the most rush-heavy teams in the NFL in terms of cumulative rushing yards made it. But let's look at efficiency on both rushing and passing, and the thing starts to shift slightly.
Let's discuss. Yes, you're absolutely right. Let's discuss a little bit about the Titans, things that need to go right for them to win. I'm going to start with their offensive line because Derrick Henry has been great. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
He's running the ball well. He's running the ball sharp. But the running back is still always the stat collector of, the greater good that's happening up front. And that is with the offensive line, Taylor Lewan and Jack Conklin ranking number 1 and 3 among all tackles during the playoffs in run blocking. Roger Saffold, top 5 among all offensive linemen. If you have Premium Stats 2.0, PFF Elite, you go to the Titans, you sort by postseason. And I'm looking at their run blocking right now, and everybody's in the green.
Right. And here's the really interesting thing, right, is so I wanted to make this argument at some point, and what becomes inconvenient is this idea, well, if you actually look at some of Henry's numbers make it look like it's all him, right? A lot of broken tackles, a lot of yards after contact. We all think of those as running back stats, right?
Yep.
Because generally, if that guy's getting yards after contact, it's on the running back. It's not the blocking. But I wrote an article, it's on PFF.com, and I pulled out some examples of tape that show how even those statistics that we think of as running back only can be a product of the blocking, right? So there's a great example that's a run against the Patriots where Taylor Lewan, it's a sort of an outside zone run to that side. Taylor Lewan wins so decisively at the line that he blocks his guy a clear 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, right? Takes a defensive lineman, moves him 10 yards off the line of scrimmage to such an extent that on, what is a sort of vaguely outside zone trajectory, Henry doesn't even have to cut it upfield. He just heads towards where Taylor Lewan was and keeps running in a straight line.
Easy read.
Right, because Lewan is no longer there. He's taken his guy 10 yards off the line. Now, Landon Roberts shoots that gap, tries to make up for it, gets an arm on Derrick Henry at the line of scrimmage. The guy on the edge against the tight end tries to sort of come back, gets 2 arms on Derrick Henry. He obviously runs through that because the guy's got a 10-yard head of steam at that point.
Right.
So depending on sort of what you think the definition for contact is on a defense, Henry has either 8 or 10 yards worth of yards after contact on a 10-yard run, right? But all of that exists because Taylor Lewan took his guy 10 yards off the line and essentially opened up this giant hole for him to run in a straight line forward.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do that, let's say he wins slightly, right? He turns his guy inside, gets a little bit of movement. There's a crease there, but Henry needs to slow down, make a move outside, cut back up. He doesn't have any kind of momentum going for him when he crosses the line of scrimmage. The dude coming back on the tight end is able to jump on him, make a tackle for 3 yards. Maybe there's a yard after contact. So essentially 5 to 7 yards after contact and probably a broken tackle.
So it's a good job by everyone.
Happened because of Taylor Lewan and the blocking, right?
Right.
So, and this is across the board because, as you said, all their offensive line is suddenly grading really well.
Tight end, too. Mecole Pruitt.
Right.
Grading well.
Suddenly grading really well from a run blocking standpoint.
Right.
So Derrick Henry is the guy benefiting, and that's not to say he's not doing anything, right? He's still making plays. But the difference between him being able to make those plays and not having the opportunity to make them in the first place is the run blocking doing damage at the line of scrimmage. They have crushed 2 really good defensive fronts in the last couple of weeks in New England and Baltimore, and it's allowed Henry to make these plays.
Yeah.
That is why we'll talk about it later when we get to the free agents, right? We're not going to rank Henry highly because, look, Le'Veon Bell is the perfect case study, right? Le'Veon Bell, one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, had been phenomenal for years behind one of the best offensive lines in football. We ranked him quite high, I think, a year ago on our free agent list. Goes to the Jets. The Jets suck. Their offensive line is miserable. Derrick Henry at the coaching situation isn't great. So Le'Veon Bell has a crappy season. Now it's like, well, if he was hitting free agency now, he'd be nowhere near the top of a list.
Yeah,
like, well, nothing changed. He just went to a worse situation.
I think it just comes down to like who dictates production the most, right? The simplest way that I like to describe it, who dictates production the most? The quarterback dictates passing production the most. Does he need help? Absolutely. We always talk about, you get this guy, he's mid-tier, you surround him with playmakers, great things can happen. But the quarterback still dictates things the most. In the run game, running backs like 3rd, 4th, or 5th in order of operations. So the comparison I'll make to give Henry credit, though, is Leonard Fournette. Big, huge dude who could, should be able to pull off some of those man-child type of runs that Derrick Henry has. But when Fournette was running for the Jags a couple years ago, he had a lot of those runs where he had 3 or 4 yards, right? Head of steam into the second level, and he'd get 7. And that's why we never really graded Fournette all that well. Henry's grading well in this run here because he has picked up 4.7 yards after contact per rush, which is better than like what Leonard Fournette would be getting at this time. Fournette would get 2 or 3 yards. That run would end up at 5, 6, or 7 because he never made anybody miss. Is it easier to make people miss at the second level? Yes, it is. The numbers show if you could get a guy 5 yards into the second level, he's going to make guys miss a little bit more. A guy like Fournette never did. A guy like Henry is, and that's why he's got 12 forced missed tackles in the 2 games in the playoffs.
The other point that I think muddies the picture a little bit is that it's definitely possible for running backs to have runs where they dramatically outperform the blocking, right?
Oh, of course.
The problem is that because most of the time they're reliant on that blocking, it's incredibly difficult to sustain that, right? So what happens is a guy like Derrick Henry goes on a run, and if he hits free agency at the right time, you're like, wow, this guy's the best running back in the league, pay him big money. It's a massive upgrade for anybody that wants a running back. But we're not looking long term, right? We're not looking at the idea that this is an outlier. This is a run of form that he can't possibly sustain unless the situation around him stays as good as it is. And the great example of that one is Melvin Gordon, right?
Yeah.
Gordon's had a crappy situation with the Chargers basically for the entire time he's been there, right? But last year, he has an incredible season, like genuinely phenomenal, the stuff he was doing despite the blocking. Ridiculously good. Now, I don't know if he understood the dynamics of work, but he holds out, tries to get the big contract off the back of that, which, to be honest, is 100% the right move. Chargers, again, whether they just didn't want to pay him or whether they understood the dynamics of it, said, hell no, you're not getting more money out of us. We're just not doing it. We think we can replace it. Doesn't get his deal, comes back, and can't sustain it, right? Nothing changed.
All the while, they're getting better production out of Austin Eckler.
Right, but the same thing, right? It's if you were coming off the back of last season, you're like, that guy's incredible. Of course he deserves a big deal. But you know that you can't sustain that unless the situation is good. So Henry is doing incredibly right now, but every piece of data says that you should not bank on that being a long-term, sustainable, repeatable occurrence. Now, it doesn't have to be. It just has to happen again this week.
Yes.
And then, 2 weeks later.
Here's the other thing I think we want to look at here. The Kansas City Chiefs have the 4th worst run defense grade by our numbers. Are you
I'm just rolling my sleeves.
in position?
No, not yet. Keep going.
Proper Cloth. We'll talk about them in a second. We'll talk about our friends at Proper Cloth in a minute. This is one of my favorite shirts by them. The Kansas City Chiefs, by the numbers, have the 4th worst run defense grade. But there's a couple games through the year where it was like, hey, it's starting to come together. It came together against Denver in the snow, against New England, against the Vikings back in week 9. The Chiefs had a 79.7 run defense grade. It was their second best effort of the season. Because if we talk about run defense or rushing production being dictated by the offensive line and box count, can't the defense dictate whether or not they truly want to stop the run?
Yes.
So even though the Chiefs aren't good on paper at stopping the run, and Chris Jones is essentially like a game-time decision, their best interior defensive lineman, if the Chiefs really want to slow down Derrick Henry, they can. They probably can. Obviously, Derrick Henry, even against an 8-man box, could break one or whatever, but if we're just playing the odds here, if the Chiefs want to stack the box and slow down Derrick Henry and make Ryan Tannehill beat you, they could do it.
Yeah.
The question is, will they choose that route? Or are they still of the mind, wait a second, I'm going to let you run a little bit on me because we want to stop the pass?
Right, and they've done that before this season. We saw that against the Vikings. They basically went,
that was their second best
the
run
Vikings,
defense grade. Yeah.
The Vikings run all day. Their offense is Dalvin Cook. Nothing functions if he's not going. So despite the fact that we have a relatively crappy run defense, we're going to sell out to stop Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook rushed 21 times for 71 yards. That's 3.4 per carry. Broke 1 tackle. They were burying him behind the line of scrimmage regularly. You can stop. Now, look, Derrick Henry probably breaks more tackles than Dalvin Cook in terms of, if you get to him. But, look, you can essentially, just by flooding the line of scrimmage with bodies, you can stop a running back in a running game if you want to, just by weight of numbers.
Yeah, and I think if we're honest about the New England outing, they were 7-man boxes, and they were saying, we're going to kind of, we're going to try to take our chances defending the run with fewer bodies. And it did not work early on. They gave up over 100 yards to Henry in the first half. In the second half, they did slow him down, and then credit the Titans when they needed to run the clock out. Henry and the O-line did work, and they finished it out. But there was a point in that game where New England did try to stack the box a little bit more. They said, okay, we do have to slow down Henry a little bit, and they did it. So, again, I think it's very defense dependent.
Right. The Patriots and the Ravens are interesting because they have offenses that are not necessarily going to set the scoreboard on fire, particularly the Patriots, right? So it's in their interest to essentially keep this a relatively low-scoring game.
Did you say the Ravens aren't going to set the scoreboard on fire?
Yeah.
They did all year. That's all they did is light the scoreboard.
Yeah, but in a way that so they want to run the ball. It takes a lot. They're not going to do what the Chiefs did, right? Which is we're going to score 28 points in like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
it's going to take them longer.
Not the Chiefs. Yeah.
It's going to take them longer to do stuff. What I'm saying is that for both of those teams, it was to an extent in their interest to let the Titans chew up a whole bunch of clock and not score that many points. And even if it allows them to, even if they're moving the ball comfortably, right?
Yeah.
Particularly the Patriots, the Ravens to a lesser extent, but same idea. The Chiefs, though. So the Patriots, what I'm saying is they had a game plan where if they say, all right, if Derrick Henry goes off for 200 and they score 14, 21 points, we're not in a bad spot. We think we can get to, 21, 28 points and we win. But the Chiefs, they're in an interesting spot because they should be able to absolutely light the scoreboard on fire.
Yeah.
Even it's in their interest to let Derrick Henry run riot on them because the only way they can lose this game from a matchup standpoint is if Tennessee's offense keeps pace. And the only way they can do that is through the air. They're not going to keep pace with the Chiefs offense by running Derrick Henry all day. The running game just can't do that.
Yeah, and I understand that there's game flow and you want to keep the ball away and all this stuff, but there's this balance between, you still got to put points on the board. The Titans scored 14 against the Patriots on offense, and the other night they were up 14-0 based off of a turnover. The pass game before Henry even got going, 27 yards before while they were up 14.
That was the most labored, butchered way of making my point ever. By me, not you.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is that...
Yeah, wrap it up. Go tighten it up.
I'm not even going to wrap it up. I'm going to try and fix it.
Your point is...
Well, look, so what the Titans did to the Ravens won't work against the Chiefs, right? The way to beat the Ravens was to put them in a hole early on and take them out of their offensive game plan, right?
You got to put the Chiefs in a 42-0 hole. That's the hole you got to get them.
Because they don't play particularly well from behind, right? The Chiefs... They're almost happier in that situation than they are in a regular situation, right? It's actually works perfectly from their game plan. So you can't do the same thing, right? Getting ahead and then just running the clock out is not going to work against the Chiefs because they're going to go up and put up 28 points in 5 minutes because you just turn them into pass all the time. So you have to do one of two things. Well, you have to essentially try and run the ball out and chew clock, try and minimize the amount of time they have the ball. But the problem is, if they're scoring every time they get the ball, you're going to need to score as well, and simply chewing up clock and moving is not going to do it. You're going to actually need to match them by putting up points, and that's probably not going to happen on the ground.
So I also want to cite Brian Burke from ESPN again. I think I mentioned it on the podcast a couple weeks ago. The games where it feels like the team ran the ball and kept the ball away from the other team, right? So the Colts game earlier this year, where the blueprint to beat the Chiefs came out, right? They won 16-10. They kept the ball away from Patrick Mahomes. In those games, there were some key fourth down conversions, and there was an element of that, but it still comes down to the defense. The pass defense has to step up. Mm-hmm. And so the Titans the last 2 weeks gave up 13 to New England, all in the first half against New England, shut them down in the second half, and then gave up 12 to the Ravens. Not because they gave up 500 yards of offense. Some of it was garbage timey, whatever. But they made stops when they needed to, the fourth downs. Bunch of times the Ravens got stopped in Tennessee territory, so it came down to making stops more so than playing keep away. It's not like you can't steal 4 possessions with your run game. You can steal maybe 1 or 2. You can tighten up 1 or 2 possessions. You still have to stop the Chiefs 8, 10, 12 times in this game. So it's still going to come down to slowing down the opposing offense.
So
I think Tannehill's going to make more. I said it last week, but this week for real, Tannehill's going to have to make a lot of plays if they're going to win.
Right. This is interesting. Both games are interesting because they're rematches
Yep.
of games that have already taken place. Now the Titans won the first game.
I think the rematch component means little, though. It's interesting,
It does,
but I think
but
means
it's
little.
instructive in terms of we've seen this game already this season. Now one of the big changes from the last time is that Cameron Irving no longer has to play left tackle for the Chiefs.
Those are the types of things that I do think are interesting, like who played, who didn't play, who was hurt, who wasn't, that part isn't.
Cam Irving is one of the worst left tackles in the NFL if he has to play there, right? He
had that one good game early in the year.
He was by far the worst player in this game for Kansas City.
Yeah.
Eric Fisher is no superstar, but we've talked for years about how offensive line play is just about how bad your weakest link is. When your weakest link is Cam Irving, it's a disaster. The chain is snapping in half and you're drowning at the bottom of the ocean. With Eric Fisher there, the weak link is okay. You're fine, right? So that completely transforms what this game looks like immediately.
Fisher has crept back toward average throughout his career.
From the Chiefs' offensive point of view, right? They no longer have that weak link, and the biggest problem they had on offense is not going to be a factor. Now, this game on the other side of the ball actually did go the way I've just been talking about, not necessarily helping, right? Derrick Henry ran riot. He had like 180 plus yards. 180 plus yards. The Chiefs' run defense was not good, and they were able to put up a bunch of points. They scored 35 and won the game. But as we said, so it was like 35-33, and the Chiefs were hamstrung by that left tackle situation. If it happens again in exactly the same circumstance, but you take away the weak link, now you're going to score 35, but the Chiefs are going to put up 50 because they've got a viable left tackle.
There was also a point in this game that the Chiefs were up late. This was like a huge, what felt like a turning point game, because the history of Ryan Tannehill was that, he throws the ball pretty well, tight spiral, you can see it, there's some stuff there. But he was always bad at like the situational stuff. Mm-hmm. Red zone, key third downs, the gritty stuff, right? This was like the grittiest of grit with Tannehill. Picking up big plays with his legs, leading the charge on a comeback. We hadn't always seen that in Tannehill's career.
It was also one of the worst grades of his season.
It was one of the worst. Ultimately, it was one of the worst. But, he threw for 181 and 2 touchdowns. But what did he do on the ground here? That's what it was, 37 yards on a couple scrambles and a couple designed runs. 2 10-plus yard runs on first downs. One of them, he did fumble in there, which hurt the overall grade, but 83.6 running grade. He fumbled in the pocket, which is one of the ones that hurt his pass grade. The point I'm trying to make here is that coincided with the Chiefs not playing their 4-minute offense all that well, not running the ball out really well. Andy Reid getting a little conservative. So Andy Reid, every year seems like he's at this crossroads of his career, right? We've led teams to multiple How many championship games has he been to at this point? 4 with the Eagles, 1 with the Chiefs now. Are there others in there? He's been to so many championship games. He's been to 1 Super Bowl, never won the Super Bowl, right? So he's this whole coach who's never won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And people always point to, there's always like some clock management. It's a timeout here and there. It's a challenge here and there. It's running when you should have passed, passing when you should have run. So if the Chiefs are in this run it out situation again, and you have a healthy Mahomes now, and you have your left tackle in place, are they going to be able to run out the clock when they need to?
Yeah.
Which for them is probably running it out through the air. Right, running the clock out through the air.
I mean, just doing what you keep doing. Like,
yeah.
I think the big failing with these systems that can't run the ball, run the clock out towards the end of the game, is that they try. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you are so good because you're that efficient at the passing game, which now has become like a 70% completion rate system. Like in league wide.
It's becoming easy. So this is why I was of the mind. Everybody says it's cyclical, right? I was talking to our friend, my friend Brian Perez. Bears fan / draft guy, whatever. He's like, the league's cyclical. Power football's coming back. And I used to think that. They're going to spread it out. They're going to get smaller. Safeties are going to start playing linebackers. Boom, here comes the fullback. Old school football's coming back. But it's not. Passing is just too efficient. It's too efficient for running to be more valuable than passing in today's NFL.
So this is the thing, right? The idea was you get up big, you now need to chew the clock by just getting first downs, right? So the old way of thinking was you average 4 yards per carry on the ground, just keep running 3 of those, and we get a first down, and we keep over and over again until the game ends, right? On the other hand, passing has now become 65+% completion rate at 7+ yards per attempt, right?
Screen game, the boot game, all that stuff has become more efficient.
By the same math, right? 4 times 4 yards per carry, or 3 times 4 yards per carry, and we get another first down, and we go again. Like 65% completion at 7+ yards per attempt, you're moving the chains as well. So if that's what you do well, if your offense consistently dominates through the air, don't pivot and go, we got to run the ball out because there's 8 minutes left and we're up by 2 scores. Go, no, we're up by 2 scores. Keep running the offense. It'll have the same effect. Don't go in the tank and try and do the thing that people think is how you chew the clock. If the run and shoot just kept going, it wouldn't be a problem that they couldn't run out the clock. They would be running out the clock by passing.
That goes back to the defense can stop something if they want. I've heard this described about coordinators too. Like, we love to say this coordinator does this, right? he's a zone guy. He's a cover 3 guy. He's a cover 2 guy. He's a zone running guy. Many offensive and defensive coordinators have done many different things throughout the years. They've run different systems, different schemes. They've adjusted. And I think the defense can also just say, there's a reason why it's tough to run out the clock at the end of the game, right? Because the defense is putting 8 and 9 men in the box. So, yeah, I think there's going to be something to that. If the Chiefs have a lead, does Andy Reid continue to make the right decisions? He's under the microscope, maybe more than ever. It's such an opportunity here with Mahomes on his first contract to steal a Super Bowl for the Chiefs.
There are situations in football games where, so a lot of this stuff is, the actual facts kind of go against your natural instinct of what you should be doing. And it's really hard to fight against those instincts and do the thing that you're supposed to do. And that's one of those situations where your natural instinct is, okay, we're up big, we run the ball out, and we chew the clock, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the worst possible thing you can do because it's the thing they want you to do and the thing that they're prepared for you to do. The thing you should do is just keep doing what you're doing. And it feels wrong. And I think so many coaches find it impossible to resist the urge to go to what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Instead of just running what's working.
It's like what we talked about with Bill O'Brien in Houston the other day. If it was a 4th and inches in a 7-0 game, Bill O'Brien's probably like, yeah, I feel good about that. But something about the scoreboard, they were up 21-0, and he's like, oh, man.
It's too risky.
It's too risky. If I don't get it, we might blow this 21-point lead. Let's get that extra 3 points against the Chiefs, right? So that scoreboard dictated things a little bit. I think Tennessee, on the other hand, now has to play the underdog role, right? So I think the mistake they could make is to say, okay, the run game has gotten us here. We're the grinded out field position team. We're going to hold on to the ball, keep it away from the Chiefs and play field position and trust our defense, which our friends at the Forecast are really triggering a ton of people by saying defense doesn't matter. The nuanced take on that is that I don't care how good your defense is, it's going to be dependent on how well Patrick Mahomes plays to determine how many points you give up. If Patrick Mahomes misses throws and doesn't make good decisions, it's less about you and more about him. You cannot trust your defense against a good offense.
Yeah,
you just can't trust them. You can't bank on it.
Right, and the Chiefs more than anybody else, again, they're in this situation where it's really hard to determine what the game plan should even be, right? You double-team Tyreek Hill. He's the dangerous guy. Okay, now Travis Kelce's gashing you. Okay, you double-team 2 guys? I mean, it's possible, but
they did it last week.
Right.
They, on the chalkboard, Houston had a good game plan last week.
So it's like, okay, now you're double-teaming 2 guys, which is possible, but now Sammy Watkins is completely one-on-one with a bad defender. So that's a mismatch. Like, it's just very hard to come up with a game plan that's actually structurally sound in order to slow down this Chiefs offense. And I'm kind of torn on what the Titans should do on offense because I don't think that fundamentally you're going to be able to score enough points to keep up with the Chiefs by running the ball consistently. On the other hand, that is the best way of shortening the game and chewing up the clock, which minimizes the amount of damage the Chiefs can do from a time standpoint.
What if I describe it like this? You want to get up early, obviously, and if you want to get up, you have to put points on the board. So you're going to do it through the passing game. I would say you start to lean on the run game just a little bit later than you would against the Ravens or against the Patriots. So by the second quarter, the Titans, they're up. They could, mix in the run a little bit more. Third quarter, the run game was a key for them, and then by the fourth quarter, they're running the clock out, right? With the Chiefs, you got to keep your foot on the gas longer and longer and longer. And, I think the Titans' best case scenario is that all of this hype that Henry is getting does push the Chiefs to say, let's stop Derrick Henry. Mm-hmm. And that they put all their resources into doing it, and then you open it up for Tannehill, who, if you use the full 8-year sample size, it's not the most appealing thing. But if you use this year's sample size where he was the highest graded just passer in the NFL, you need that guy, right? You need that guy to find A.J. Brown, to find Hall of Famer Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith.
And even in the playoffs when he hasn't, they've lent on Derrick Henry and Tannehill's been largely a passenger. he's made some key plays in both games.
Some really key plays. Absolutely.
Patriots' key third down conversion late in the game was vital.
Yep.
The reason they were up 14-0 in the first place against the Ravens was 2 Tannehill touchdowns, one of which was a bomb deep down the middle of the field. As much as Derrick Henry has been the guy carrying this offense for most of those 2 games, Tannehill has made some key plays which have put points on the board. Like, even in those games, which he has not been nearly as good as he was the rest of the season, he's still showing up more than, Miami Tannehill has.
Oh, absolutely. You know what's funny, too? I think the Titans have done a good job of taking, like, Khalif Raymond has been this, from Holy Cross, this undersized, outside speed receiver who's essentially run a couple routes per game, right? I think they're telegraphing how they're using him. He was the one who had the 45-yard touchdown last week. How many snaps did he play? 5?
I love those guys. The Vikings did that with whoever they have. That he literally came in, played 1 snap, they threw a deep bomb to him, and he kind of dropped the ball. Should have caught it. And then that was it. That was his game.
Raymond on the season has 10 catches for 215, 2 touchdowns. They did this against Indy a few weeks back, had a 40-yarder. So he's had games with a 52-yarder, a 40-yarder, a 30 or 23-yarder, and then 45. So he's had 3 40-plus yard plays on 13 targets, right? This is where I like the strategy, but the Chiefs have to be ready for this. Like, dude, the guys are going to be on the field 5 times. Just have somebody sitting over the top. Just don't let this guy beat you on his 5 times. Right?
Alexander Hollins is the guy the Vikings had.
Yeah, I mean, I like it as a strategy, but at some point it's like, all right, now we know.
I'm
right?
just kind of fascinated by it as a strategy. It's like he goes out there, 1 target, deep down the field, can't come up with it. All right, sit on the bench. You're not coming back in.
Well, I've always been fascinated by the speed guys, the true deep threats that cannot ultimately become Tyreek Hill or Deshaun Jackson. We've talked about this before, right? Why couldn't the old school Raiders strategy of just getting all the 4-3 guys, why didn't that work? What separates Deshaun Jackson and Tyreek Hill? Did I say Troy earlier too? Tyreek Hill. From the rest of these guys. And of course, it's getting off press coverage and it's ball skills and all that stuff. But I love the concept of different style receivers, which is why I think I was telling you a few weeks ago, I would get rid of, I'm running the team building here. What if we cut down on special teamers? And like a college team, you had 7 wide receivers that are active. And everybody had a Khalif Raymond,
also,
undersized speed guy.
Those 2 things aren't mutually exclusive.
You can have guys that can
How hard is playing coverage on special teams?
Not that hard.
Especially now. Like, nobody returns kicks anyway.
I'm back and forth on it because like the best coaches have their incredible attention to detail and every play matters and all that stuff. When we'd be like, maybe 5 or 6 plays a game don't matter that much. Focus on the bigger ones.
I mean, they matter, but how hard is it?
How hard is it?
Look, Cordell Patterson flames out as a wide receiver. He's like the best gunner in the league. Like, ultimately, run down the field. It's not that hard.
You got to get off the vice, though.
Right. But you only need 2 of those guys.
If you could beat a vice, you could beat a corner. You should be a deep threat.
This is what I'm saying.
Why can't Patterson become a deep threat?
Right. I mean, catching the ball at the end of it is the problem there.
It is. Anyway, if you had 7 receivers and you had a big-bodied red zone guy and you got the speed guy and you got possession guy and you got the all-around, you just have different styles, right? I would love that. So I liked so keep an eye on number 14 when he's on the field, play action deep shot. And honestly, that could be the difference in the game. There could be just this one play where Tannehill overthrows him, Javarius Ward's there and knocks the pass away. It could be this one pass that it's either a touchdown or not. And that's going to be a big factor in this game, trying to steal touchdowns against the Chiefs.
And then, of course, just the chaos of playoff football where single random plays can change everything. I mean, the Chiefs game last week had at least half a dozen just madcap crazy plays that change everything. Fumbles on special teams both ways, drops on third down that kill drives, all this kind of thing. Completely unpredictable stuff, right? How do they break in this game? Because
absolutely. I mean, that's
they all broke against the Chiefs for like a quarter and a half, and then they swung back in their favor. What happens here? Because the Titans probably need a few of those plays to win.
Patrick Mahomes has done a great job of taking care of the football. We should talk more Chiefs now. There's a lot of Titans driven, but I think so much of it is like, what are the Titans? Like, what are they getting into here? I don't think they're a true 6 seed. No. They're a team that started 2-4. That's why they're the 6th seed. They're a legitimate team in the AFC. This isn't like a
right. Everyone talks
Cinderella run.
Yeah, everyone talks about the Titans as like a 500 team or, just there or thereabouts. But when you consider that the Mariota run got them 2-4, the Tannehill run puts them way above that. Like, they're a much better team than that.
7-3.
There you go. The Tannehill run.
They're a 700 team.
Right. Which, I don't know, what is that extrapolated out with an extra 6 games? Come on, you're the math guy. I mean, between the two of us, obviously, compared to the actual math guy.
It's like, it's like 10.5 and 5.5, something like that.
Right. So they're better than that.
Yeah, they're a 10.5 and 5.5 team.
There you go.
That's what they are.
Yeah. So
they're playing like a 10.5, 5.5 team. That's what the Titans are.
They're playing like a 10.
They're not a 9 and a 7 team. They're a 10.5 team.
They're playing like a 10.5 team.
10.5 win team. This is the way, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not an 11 win team. Like a 10 and 2/3 win team. That's what they are. Right?
Right.
That's what the Titans. Not a 9 win team.
No.
They're a 9 win team with Mariota playing 38% of the games. That's what he started. 37.5% of the games. 6 of them.
For the Chiefs, it's interesting because home field advantage for them is huge. Arrowhead is a legit home field advantage. 2, like, this offense is terrifying.
Of course.
I mean, last week was the greatest example of what it can do, and it's been what's missing for a lot of the season because Mahomes has been so banged up. Ankle, dislocated kneecap, hurt hand, hurt ribs. Like, the dude has been battling through a lot. The fact that he had a week to rest up before the playoffs, I think, is huge. Him now being 100%, we're seeing the crazy things that he can do again. You look at those. I
think we're seeing the simple things that he could do. That's been the difference this year.
Simple. So it's not, again, those two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive. He does some incredible simple things. Like the touchdown where he was rolling out to his left and almost crossed the line of scrimmage and just finds the gap.
Oh, I don't think that's
Travis Kelce.
I don't think that's simple.
I mean, I think it was a relatively simple play, right? It was incredible because not many people make it, but his ability to basically keep navigating and find a small hole in between 6 defenders is nuts.
Oh, I get it.
But he only had to dink a ball 5 yards to score a touchdown.
This is the number that really gets me, and the reason why why Mahomes' grade was down a little bit this year, and the Chiefs' offense was really explosive, but not as explosive as last year. His negatively graded throws went up 4% this year. That was much higher throughout the year, so he's tightened it up in recent weeks. That's the second highest increase in the NFL this year, other than Matthew Stafford. Stafford had the highest increase, but that coincided with the biggest increase outside of Tannehill and positives and big-time throws and all that stuff. Stafford's was because of a scheme change. He started to throw the ball 4 yards per target, per throw, further down the field, so you're going to get more negatives. Mahomes, same system, but again, I think the thing that made him special last year, special plays, made the routine stuff, right? He's making the routine stuff right now. So I was doing Tennessee radio today. It's like, how do you stop Mahomes? I'm like, it really is like the whole Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, these top guys in their prime. There's no blueprint. There's no game plan. You just hope that they miss. You hope you cloud their judgment enough. You compress the pocket enough that they miss. And that's teams that have shut down the Chiefs, like the Lions did a decent job. The Colts did a decent job. Mahomes missed a lot of throws. He just missed more throws in those games. You can't, the game plan can be like, hey, we're going to hope Mahomes misses 5% more throws in this game.
I mean, he's back to that level where I don't know what you should do. You know what I mean? Like, he's one of a very select group of quarterbacks over the last decade where I don't know what the game plan should even be heading into the game to stop them, because they're good at everything. They kill you in every possible way, and there's nothing you can do to even necessarily tilt the odds in your favor. At least with a Brady, even Brady at his even Brady at his incredible best, right? You at least knew what game plan took a percentage off it, right? You play man coverage. You keep, there's things you can do.
You rush for really effectively
to at least give you a better chance of winning. With Mahomes, there's nothing you can do because he's good at all of the things. So no matter what you line up and try and do, he's still perfectly capable of dissecting it and killing you. And that causes problems because, it's one thing having to execute your game plan in order to win. It's another thing entirely having no earthly idea where to even begin with a game plan.
I think their best bet, you can't really bank on your defense week over week, but you're hoping I think, again, the Titans are way more capable than the Texans in their secondary. The Titans, Tremaine Brock has been playing well. We've talked about him. Adoree Jackson back there, Logan Ryan. They at least have these guys to potentially match up. Are we going to see Adoree Jackson, Tyreek Hill, some tracking, some safety leaning and all that stuff? I think we're going to see similar game plans. Again, I don't think the chalkboard game plan for the Texans last week was bad. Double the best guys, make the other guys beat you. I think we'll see more of that from the Titans. A lot of man coverage. You phantom pressure up front to try to create some indecision, and you hope you can cover on the back end. The Titans have a better shot of doing that, and I think the goal is compress the pocket. Don't let them get outside because it affects your coverage, compromises the way they can stick with receivers, and you kind of hope for the best with those guys in the secondary. And that's your best bet.
Yeah. Are we done with this game?
Yeah. Okay.
Where are you
All
going?
that said,
Chiefs.
I'm taking the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans pulled this one off.
What an insane run this would be if they got to the Super Bowl.
They're kind of fun. I mean, people like underdog stories in general. Tannehill going from last year was not a good depiction of how he's played through the years, but he was the lowest graded quarterback that we've had.
I'm here for it just for Derrick Henry earning himself the Joe Flacco contract, but at running back.
Yeah, and people like a year from now be like, man, I can't believe this Derrick Henry contract hasn't been worth it.
Yeah.
Who could have seen this coming?
I'm all for it.
Is my shirt glowing again today?
It's not white, so you're probably okay.
It's got some white in it.
Sure, but that's not the problem.
Boy, does it fit
pure
well.
white
Does
that
it
causes
just-
the problems.
Steven Nelson, one of our
Buddies.
commenters here, said we look good.
Steven Nelson, the cornerback? He's in the YouTube
I
comments?
think, is it Steven? Oh, Steven Elliott. Sorry, not Steven Nelson. Not the cornerback, Steven Nelson.
Because, I mean, look, he does converse with us every now and again, but taken to the YouTube comments would
Let's
be
not discuss who
taking
converses
it. Well, it's okay.
with us.
We could say he talks to us.
I'm officially taking the Chiefs,
Same.
and you are as well.
Yes.
But I'm not going to be surprised either way.
No, I certainly...
Did anybody buy your services, by the way?
I didn't have...
Bids weren't high enough?
The offers weren't great, to be honest. One guy, I can't remember what the offer was, but it was out on Twitter. It wasn't the best offer in the world, to be honest.
Look, you're trying to buy flights to Ireland for the family and stuff like. You need some
We need
big
some,
money.
yeah, we
floating
need
in
some
here.
significant offers to come in for me to make use of this jinx.
That's a nice shirt that you rolled the sleeves up.
Thank
you have
you,
a
Steve.
lot of style.
Yours is nice as well.
Thank you. It's all from Proper Cloth. ProperCloth.com/PFF is where you can get $20 off your first custom fitting shirt. The very best in custom fit menswear.
Yes.
ProperCloth.com/PFF. The promo code is PFF20. Tell the folks how awesome your shirts are in your cool styles.
If you are even vaguely outside of the perfect normal mannequin range of small, medium, and large, or whatever the sizes actually are, which is most people, frankly, right? Like, obviously, you are quite dramatically outside of the normal range of sizes, right? So you need all kinds of custom tailor work done. Me, I'm a lot closer. But even me, if I try and buy a shirt that's just off the peg, I'm going to have sleeves that cut off halfway down my arms. I have long arms for my size, so I need some work done. Proper Cloth, you can basically tweak any possible size of your shirt. You could loosen up the pits, because apparently tight pits are where you struggle.
I do.
So
affects the
circulation, the air circulation.
Yeah, sweat a little bit.
You get the old loose pits in the Proper Cloth shirt, and suddenly
that extra watch space.
all those problems are gone. Yeah,
it's great. I've got all sorts of different shirts. I got some ones that I put on. I have some for suits. I have some that I wear on the podcast here. I got my lavender one, which I was really excited about. I needed a lavender shirt. So
yeah, you can go all the way from like hyper casual, cactuses on them, cacti
even,
all the way to fancy formal dinner shirts and that kind of thing.
And this is the way men shop these days, right? It's simple.
Lazy.
Yeah. You don't have to go anywhere. You're on your computer. You put in your measurements.
You don't have to be judged by those people in the fitting rooms to look at you and they're like,
once you get the first shirt to fit,
it's all saved.
Then it's just like a click away.
Bump.
Steve's business cash saved. And I'm good.
You can go back and forth with them to get it to fit, right? You don't have to take a guess at it, get back and that didn't really work.
No, it's going to fit perfectly. Right. They guarantee it.
You can go back and forth, get it dialed in, and then you're then you're sorted.
Proper Cloth has been featured in many top publications such as New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Esquire, GQ and Fast Company, GQ even calls them their new favorite online custom shirt maker. I did not know that GQ said that until I got these notes.
Huh, okay.
That's great. Good for GQ. They're right on because Proper Cloth, they're the best. Propercloth.com/PFF. PFF 20 will get you $20 off your first shirt. That is propercloth.com/PFF. You can pause, go make your shirt, and then come back.
Pause, buy the shirt, send us a picture of what you bought.
Please send us a picture of what you get
and then
from a shirt standpoint.
Listen to the pod again.
So speaking of sponsors, real quick, we cannot give away, because I'm seeing it on the website, we cannot give away what was sent to us, because I don't even know if it's to the public yet.
Okay.
But our friends at Manscaped have some things going on. I mean, things are moving in a positive direction over there. I assume we're going to have more in the coming weeks.
Game-changing things are afoot.
But don't forget about manscapes.com as well.
Yes.
And our friends over there.
Can we get to some critical news?
Yes.
So, LSU wins the national title game.
This is not critical.
It is. LSU wins the national title game. Joe Burrow balls out. He is the presumptive number 1 overall pick to this hometown Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay, I thought you were going the other way with it. This is big news.
Hometown Cincinnati Bengals gets Joe Burrow, local boy, former Ohio State quarterback, right?
Yes.
Now, it seems like he will be the obvious pick, but he has a tweet from the 20th of February, 2018, that simply says, just a reminder that Skyline is terrible. That is all. Skyline chili being Cincinnati's hometown food thing.
And Joe's from Ohio, not Cincinnati. He's from Southeast Ohio. He's got experience with Skyline.
Yes.
The PFF Slack channel that contains everybody that works here at the office is up in arms right now. There are many Cincinnatians in the chat right now very upset with Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Like,
now
they're ready to pass on Joe
in
Burrow.
his defense, he's 100% right.
Oh, he's absolutely right. I am not a Cincinnatian. I am not proud of Skyline now that I live here.
For a start, it should not be allowed to be called chili, because it isn't.
It's some sort of like bootleg pasta.
I don't know what it is, but it's not chili.
They tell you got to get it the 5-way or whatever. You're not getting it the right way, Sam. 3-way.
Yeah.
You're not getting it the right way.
What is the right way?
The right way, I'm sorry, Patrick, and I'm sorry, Kenny, guys that are complaining. There is no right way to get Skyline. We may have lost Skyline as a sponsor.
Probably. So here's the thing.
I stand with Joe.
If it was just chili put on spaghetti, we could talk, right? It would still be a mistake, but we could at least have a discussion.
Yeah.
The thing that they put on the spaghetti is not chili. I don't know what it is, but it tastes like the kind of crappy school curries that we used to get in the canteen, like a vat of stuff that like they make for school children.
It's kind of like canned meat sauce, right?
But it doesn't taste like, it's not like marinara. It's like there's curry flavors in there. It's something unique that doesn't belong on pasta or rice or in fact anything.
We told the story before. We went to the Bengals game a couple years ago, the press box, they get the pregame spread and it's great. It's like prime rib and they got all this great stuff,
and
right?
Halftime comes.
And then at halftime, it's kind of like...
It's like wet wieners and Skyline chili.
Everybody in Cincinnati is so proud of it. It's like, I know you guys had that pregame meal, but our pride and joy is out here for halftime.
Right.
It's Skyline chili.
So look.
And people are like, I don't get it.
Joe Burrow is probably going to take some crap for that. But he's right.
Listen.
The one thing I will say about Skyline, right, is that at least it isn't Gold Star, which as far as I can tell, is Skyline, and they found a way of making it worse, which is to lob chunks of raw onion in there.
Oh, gosh. So we're really good at creating taglines. So Skyline.
At least we're not Gold Star.
At least we're not Gold Star.
Right.
That needs to be a shirt. Get Mike on the shirt here.
Look, there are marketing professionals who pay a lot of money for this stuff.
I had some friends going to Skyline a few weeks back, brought the kids. The overall experience wasn't bad. Like I got like a wrap or something. Like there's some stuff there that wasn't bad, but their pride and joy is it's not great. Alex is bad. The entire second floor of the PFF building is just up in arms right now.
Look.
Native Cincinnatians, they're not going to do any work.
Everybody has their local food custom, right?
Yeah.
But this was just a mistake. This was an error in judgment that should have been fixed a long time ago once you got exposed to real food.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been. It's been allowed to,
I'm more worried that, there's nothing else that's stepped up.
That's what I mean.
There's nothing else that's stepped up in Cincinnati for you to be proud of. Like Montgomery Inn, they got some great ribs. That's a nice place.
Graders, they make good ice cream. It's good.
It's reasonable.
It's good. Well, look,
I go to UDF for my ice cream here.
Reasonable ice cream is about 58 steps ahead of Skyline Chili.
I came from a place with good ice cream.
Yeah, but all right, let's say it's below average ice cream, right? Below average ice cream is about 52 steps ahead of Skyline Chili, which in and of itself is 10 steps ahead of Gold Star Chili.
Ahead of made-up chili with meat sauce.
Yes, and cheese. They lump like this mountain of cold grated cheese over the top of it. What do you like? Who?
Maybe don't speak until you get a three-way, Sam.
I think that is the three-way.
Let's go try. We should try it on the podcast.
No, we
shouldn't. Just to really.
I tried it once.
I tried it years
because
ago.
It's like you come over in Cincinnati. This is the thing. It's Skyline. Have it. Tried it once. It will never be entering my digestive system again.
Ian Perks wants us to get back to the game previews.
Well, he can come over here and make us.
Yeah, come on over, Ian. Now that you're back in England. So that's it. Joe Burrow not endearing himself to...
no, the Cincinnatians. Cincinnatians. What do you call those people? Locals?
The PFF. The entire IT team wants no part of Joe Burrow here in Cincinnati. But we practice radical candor here. And if you can't be truthful and tell the truth about things, then,
Well, look, if you think that stuff tastes good, then I can't fix that. I can't help you. You're beyond help.
You are. You ready to get to the NFC?
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Wait, one more little final bow on this thing, right? So I was thinking the other day about how, like in, sci-fi things, you get to the stage where everyone's in space, and at this point we've evolved beyond steaks and eggs, right? We're just eating protein. We're just eating nutrients.
You're going to piss them off even more, aren't you?
It's just like a bar, right? Or a bowl of slop, right? But this is everything your body needs. So don't worry about what it is. Just consume it, right? Austin has taken to eating meals that's like this, where it's just two bowls of slop mixed together. But it's like all the protein and nutrients and vegetable matter that he needs. It's just in a form that I don't know why humanity would voluntarily accept, right? That's basically what Skyline is. I mean, it might be everything your body needs, but it's put in a form that has no business going into your mouth.
Oh, God. At least we're not Gold Star.
At least we're not Gold Star.
The NFC Championship is also a rematch. And the line's 7.5. Fascinating one here, right? We've had people going back and forth on the Packers. They're the worst 13-3 team. And, they just kind of grind it out as far as wins. They have Aaron Rodgers, who's been not as good as he's been in the past, but he's coming off this incredible game.
Except last week.
You said 2011 Rodgers isn't coming back. Mm-hmm. Looks a little bit like.
It's not been a great run for my predictions over the last few weeks.
No, you've been terrible.
Yeah.
You've been terrible. But anyway, I think the point here, everybody's remembering the Sunday night game where the Niners just destroyed the Packers. Wasn't even close.
No.
And it was one of 2 or 3 games where the Packers just looked completely inept on offense. Completely inept. One of the worst offensive performances of the season. They just couldn't do anything. So I think that is fresh in people's mind, how dominant the 49ers were in that game, how inept the Packers were. So how much bearing does that have now on the rematch?
That was the worst grade we've ever given Aaron Rodgers in a game. That's probably not happening again. Now, that doesn't mean we'll get the guy we got last week, which is vintage Aaron Rodgers coming back. But, when Rodgers plays the worst game he's ever played in his NFL career, that's going to make it tricky to beat arguably the best team in the NFL. So anything north of that puts the Packers incrementally closer, right? The other thing that's intriguing to me is that it's a 7.5 point game. That gets eradicated immediately with one mistake from the 49ers, right?
Jimmy G.
From Jimmy Garoppolo.
I want to get to, because you wrote up something on Jimmy Garoppolo, which I think was fascinating. Dug into the numbers. This is the one time you were right. You're like, I think this thing was true. Let me dig into PFF Ultimate, powered by AWS, our friends over there, AWS Cloud. Let me see if it backs things up, and you dig in really deep, and you found it, which I think was great. I want to get to that in a second, though. Mm-hmm. The Packers offense, you mentioned Rodgers, 37.9 grade in that last game. I thought last week it was the Davante Adams show, lined up in multiple places, was open left and right, all over the place, right? And then they did a pretty good job of scheming things up. Like throughout the year, they've schemed up Jimmy Graham, who's big and slow now. They've schemed up Aaron Jones out of the backfield. I don't see a situation where they can do that effectively against the Niners. I think the Niners are just, Jimmy Ward flying in from the secondary. You got Richard Sherman on the outside. I think this has to go through Davante Adams. Mm-hmm. They held him to 7 catches for 43 yards in the first matchup. If they do that again, I'm going to pull a Sam. And if they do that, I don't see a way that the Packers can win unless the Rodgers-Adams connection is just elite again.
And it was hugely down to Rodgers, just worst game ever, right? Because, again, Richard Sherman's great and, best graded cornerback or whatever this season, back to his very best. But he's going to play one side of the field. If you want to get Davante Adams away from Richard Sherman, just don't line him up at right wide receiver and you're good. So I actually did that last time they played. He spent most of his time against Ahkello Witherspoon. Witherspoon, remember, who got roasted by multiple different Vikings receivers and then got benched after like 10 snaps, right? Yeah. If you get Davante Adams against Witherspoon, now I don't think Witherspoon's even going to play in this game because he got benched. But if you get Davante Adams against a non-Richard Sherman cornerback, it should be a massive mismatch in your favor. And you can dictate that every single snap if you want to do it. So I suspect they will manufacture that matchup again, and they'll be way more successful than one catch for 7 yards against Witherspoon this time.
It's not a massive mismatch. I mean, it
really is.
Kwan Williams is pretty good in the slot.
Yeah, but pretty good against elite is a massive mismatch.
It's also not all man coverage across the board. It's, zone heavy concepts and all that stuff. And, look, the Packers have been really good early in games, scripting up the first 15 and being efficient there. And I think they just have to be on point offensively throughout this game. When you do have a light box to run the ball, Aaron Jones taking advantage of that. I mean, I just think they just have to be really good. Rodgers has to work the middle of the field, those deep crossers and all those passes that he hasn't made the last couple of years. Here's the other aspect. People talk about, well, when he went to California, he struggled. Those are the 2 games where they just didn't show up. No-showed against the Chargers and against the 49ers. The real thing that is consistent there is not so much the fact that it happened in the state of California. It's that they run that same cover 1, cover 3 Seattle scheme, which Seattle themselves have gotten away from a little bit. They played they played a lot of different stuff. But the Niners and Chargers, they play it old school style. The way you beat that is the deep crossers behind the linebackers and all that stuff. And those are the passes that Rodgers hasn't wanted to make the last couple of years. Right. He's got to attack the intermediate deep middle of the field and those areas that that defense is weak.
In the last 4 years, which is as far as I reach before you stopped talking and I had to start talking, the first game against the 49ers this season is the most total pressures David Bakhtiari has given up in a game. Now, that it's tied for the most, and the other 2 times it's happened are against the Vikings. But he gave up a lot of pressure in that first game. That is a really good one-on-one matchup. Bakhtiari against Nick Bosa. Not just Nick Bosa, but that entire defensive line for the 49ers obviously has been getting a ton of pressure. Getting D Ford back for them makes a difference and just gives them one more edge rusher. And anytime, basically
they've moved him around too. They've put him over the guards, and they having those multiple options up front has been a huge difference.
The more the merrier. I mean, it gives them a chance to actually rotate the bodies and keep everybody fresh, right? So last week against the Vikings, nobody played on the defensive line more than 35 snaps. So they got 11 snaps essentially to rotate in and out and keep people fresh. So I think that's huge. Rodgers was responsible for some pressure last time. That's going to be the case again because that's the style of quarterback he is. But if Rodgers takes himself a step forward, that battle between one of the best pass blocking lines in the NFL and one of the best pass rushing teams in the NFL is a really interesting one to watch.
The Packers tried to hit the Niners with play action in that first matchup. They tried 34% of Rodgers' dropbacks. He only averaged 4 yards per attempt. And again, that's not always him. There's some drops, whatever it is, right? But only 4 yards per attempt on play action. And that was another huge factor where, again, you got to get those linebackers moving, right? They're aggressive. they fly to the ball. You want to get that it's the linebackers and it's the strong safety that play that underneath zone. The best offenses get them moving, right? The curl flat defenders, they have to sprint out to the flat. So the way you beat them is you get the ball into the hands of playmakers, let them force a missed tackle. Once you get them widening, you get the crossers going back behind them, behind the guys. It's just got to be this really well-run offense, right? Where each play is building off the next one. You get the linebackers moving side to side, get a safety to bite every now and again to create a big play. Rodgers also, admittedly, just avoids Sherman throughout the years. I mean, he legitimately eliminates that side of the field.
Right.
Now, I don't think it's that big of a deal because when you're facing a team that's going to play mostly zone, you don't think Sherman's going to track Davante Adams. He probably won't. It would be interesting if he does. It'd be a great matchup if he does. But if he doesn't, you can go empty. You throw Aaron Jones out there. You can throw Jimmy Graham out there and just work everywhere else. It's not that big of a deal, I think, to avoid a corner. It's not losing half the field. It's losing a quarter of the field.
Well, so
if you do it the right way, you don't have to line up Davante Adams across from Richard Sherman. You don't have to. You can move him anywhere else.
I think you shouldn't. I think you should move him somewhere else. He's the best cornerback potentially in the league, certainly on the field. So why would you line your best receiver up against him? It's just not smart. But the interesting thing is, so there's a bunch of different ways you can do that, right? Now, you can line up one guy over there, right? Somebody you don't care about, shift everything else to the other side of the field. Now you're working on half the field. Or you can load up his side of the field, just move your guy into the slot. There's a whole different... You've got 53 yards of width to play with, right?
Right.
Potentially 5 different eligible receivers to mess around with, only one of which you're losing to Richard Sherman. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can creatively or strategically take advantage of the fact that you know where he's going to line up basically every single play. And then the flip side of that is on defense, there's a couple of different things you can do when you know that's what's happening, right? And this is when I spoke to Richard Sherman for an article I wrote about him, what he talked about, right, is just because I don't track receivers doesn't mean like I'm not having an impact on the rest of the defense, right? I might stay on one side of the field, but if they're running like trips left, there's one guy on my side, I'm matched up in man coverage way more than a guy who's tracking a cornerback is, because he's probably got a safety over the top. I'm on an island on the back side. They're going to lean the coverage to the trip side. Like I'm literally on an island one-on-one with no help.
Yeah.
So I'm playing more man coverage than the guys we think are playing man coverage tracking, and they're playing 2-man with safeties over the top and all this kind of stuff, right?
Oh, a big part of this whole defense is to lock the backside.
Right.
And Sherman's been great at that. You lean the safety, and there's an advantage there.
If you take advantage of the fact that that's happening, you can lean your coverage away from him and give help to the other side. It's like, what we talked about before with sort of what the Patriots do with theirs, right? You bracket somebody and leave the guy with the second best corner. There's a bunch of different things you can do, whether it's tracking number ones, tracking number twos, just playing one side of the field and using the advantage that gives you to a lean coverage away. That sort of chess match with what happens with Richard Sherman is pretty fascinating on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think I always like to say, if we're talking about a win for the Packers on Monday morning, I think we're gonna talk about something schematically where they did a really nice job of freeing up Adams, or, they did find a way to get Jimmy Graham or whoever else, Aaron Jones or someone else in space to create some plays. Or Aaron Jones just had a ridiculous game running the ball for 200 yards. But yeah, that should be a great matchup. Let's go to the other side of the ball. 49ers have won a variety of ways this year. Their run game, as we said on Monday, very unique. Outside zone, gap, they can do it all. They use Deebo Samuel in creative ways, end arounds. You always have to account for where rookie wide receiver Deebo Samuel is. You always have to account for George Kittle. And all that said, as you wrote this week, Jimmy Garoppolo and those linebackers, does he have a blind spot? Could this be one of the difference makers for the Packers?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He always gave me the impression of a quarterback that just doesn't see linebackers. And I've thought for a while now that there are some QBs for whom this is just a trait. And it's not necessarily saying they're bad quarterbacks. Like Tony Romo, I think his biggest failing was this, right? Whenever Tony Romo made a bad mistake and threw an interception, it was almost always to a linebacker that you're like, how did you not see that guy? Like, he was there the whole way. What the hell happened?
By the way, we got to pour one out for Luke Kuechly.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of linebackers, the Tony Romo hit.
Yeah.
Can we go on that quick?
Right, yeah, Luke Kuechly.
Renner said, best linebacker game he ever saw, Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. I'm with him. The best play I ever saw, I've described it on the pod many times. But you know how usually the quarterback gets the last check, right? Or if he doesn't, the defense just gets into some sort of base coverage, and that's it. This was like Romo's at the line, he checks, Kuechly checks, and then Romo checks one more time. And then Kuechly made one last check on this one particular play. And then he robs the middle of the field in cover 2 and pick 6 against Romo. It was one of the best pure linebacker plays I've ever seen, because usually it's just like, okay, he checked, let's go to some base coverage, and the quarterback just finds the open man or whatever. This was incredible. Thanksgiving 2015. Romo wasn't playing all that well, but he just like outsmarted Romo at the line of scrimmage. Not only got to the right coverage, he was the one who made the play, ended up being a pick 6. Luke Kuechly was amazing.
There's a few different crazy plays from Kuechly. One, so he got Julio'd / Mossed on the play, but you remember that deep touchdown to Julio Jones? The fact that it's Luke Kuechly, the middle linebacker,
running with him
45 yards
Yes.
downfield in a jump ball with Julio Jones is in and of itself insane. He's also one of the few linebackers, you can probably still count on one hand the number who have done this in the NFL, who have made the play on the deep cross against cover 3 that nobody makes because it's
Right.
almost impossible. He's made one of those plays. There's
made
also
the sideline play
yeah,
on cover 2.
right.
Like, you're not supposed to be there.
No, I mean he was so good in coverage that he legitimately changed the zones. Right? There's a sort of general principle that quarterbacks deal with of, all right, I know broadly what coverage they're playing, I therefore know more or less where everybody's going to be. Right? So with this route working against this coverage, I have a rough circle of zone to hit. Kuechly changes the size of those zones, right? Because A, he's got better range than most players, but B, he's got that Richard Sherman thing where he's done so much study and tape work that he anticipates and reads better than you do as well, right? So he knows what's coming, which gives him even further head start to change all those zones and that kind of thing. So the one number I think works quite well. A lot of coverage numbers for players that aren't cornerbacks are kind of tricky because those guys are not necessarily in primary coverage all the time and blah, 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 right? But one number that does, I think, do quite a nice job is just basic passer rating into a linebacker's coverage, right? Because linebackers...
If you know what the baseline is.
Right, which is, I don't know, about to tell people, so,
Okay,
How
good.
about you shut
Tell
up
us
for a
about the
second?
baselines. Whoa.
Linebackers are targeted a lot.
Did you tell me to shut up?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're going to give up a lot of plays because a lot of it is underneath. It's sort of designed to give that up rather than the 50-yard touchdown deep down the field. So the average linebacker, when they're targeted, gives up a passer rating of like 105, right? It's high. It's higher than average because they're giving up a lot of those plays. Kuechly is always consistently fairly well below that, right? For his entire career, he's given up a passer rating of like 86.
Yeah.
So like 20 points lower than the average NFL linebacker at any given time for his entire career. Right? At some years, he's been way below it.
Yeah, at that sample size, there's something to it.
Right. I mean, and this year, what I really liked, and this is going to piss people right off, what I really liked is putting quarterbacks to that range. So this year, it's the 2019 equivalent of turning Patrick Mahomes into Daniel Jones.
Oh, yeah.
It's also the equivalent of
You had to
turning
mention Daniel Jones again.
Patrick Mahomes into Josh Allen, but I recognize that Bills fans might not get the distinction between those two.
Giants fans won't get it either. By the way, I wrote up all the rookie quarterbacks in very fair fashion at PFF.com.
Oh, that doesn't seem like
If you have Edge or Elite, you can read it. But it was very fair. What went well, what didn't go well, some numbers behind it, all that stuff. Anyway, we'll pour one out officially for Luke Kuechly the same way we did for Joe Thomas. We only do that for future Hall of Famers.
It's interesting. I don't know if this is just because he's, a local guy originally, but there seemed to be a lot of people that had like one-on-one personal stories about Luke Kuechly compared with the normal average NFL player that retires. We met him at the training camp tour a couple of years ago. Really nice guy. Our buddy Jack Farrell played against him back in college.
Yeah. He went to school with Trey.
Yeah.
You know, another guy that worked
Renner
for us.
played whatever that game is against him.
Cornhole?
There you go. Renner played that against him.
Yeah. Thanks, Luke, for all your...
By the way, I found out in researching for a little retirement article I wrote about him what his concussion collar thing is supposed to do.
Yeah? It's like my fighting necklaces?
I think it might be worse than that.
I was a double fighting
Do you
guy
know
at one
what
point.
that thing is designed to do?
No.
It is so it apparently compresses on your jugular vein, which essentially pools the blood in your head in an attempt to create essentially an airbag of blood when you get your skull rattled around. Now, I'm not a doctor, but
Your parents are.
that seems like pretty sketchy science to me.
Yeah.
One of the things I know from my scientific background is that one of the differences between air in a bag, say, like you get in a car, and liquids is they don't compress like that. That's why hydraulics work. So I'm not sure you want to be surrounding your brain with an uncompressible liquid like that.
Do you ever really want to pool blood anywhere?
I mean, I wouldn't, personally.
Anyway.
But that's what it's designed to do, is to essentially squeeze your jugular to the point where all the blood rush pools in your head.
Let's get
you don't get concussed.
We can't have like a slight divergence because you just take it too far. You just take it one step too far.
You're the one that brought up Geekly.
I did.
I don't even know where I was.
Can I ask
was
our
in somewhere
fans?
else.
I need to ask our listeners a quick question though.
Oh, God.
If we had a live show
Oh, yeah.
at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, would you attend?
We need a hashtag. What's the hashtag we can get people to send us?
PFF Live. Hashtag PFF Live.
Hashtag PFF Live. Tweet us and tell us if you would show up to that.
So listen, here's the deal. All these other podcasts that have millions of listeners like we do, they all do live shows. They're like on tour. It's like they have like their own tour bus, and it's like a whole thing.
To sweeten the deal, it will likely be in a drinking establishment of some kind.
Yeah, we'll find out. We're going to find a local brewery
It will
in
likely
Indianapolis.
involve.
I've already got my people.
Okay.
Have I got it?
It will likely involve some significant stars of some kind. You know, players, Chris, us, obviously.
Us. Maybe Eric and
Possibly
George.
a PFF championship belt and some prizes. You know,
Yeah, I think
give
we'll
away
get some
merch.
gear. We'll get some gear and some merch and
There's
all
a lot
that
of
stuff.
reasons for you to show up to this thing.
So I don't know if fans travel to the Combine and they're looking for things to do. That might be one. Obviously, the folks in Indianapolis, we have a bunch of listeners in Indy in that surrounding area. Or if you're like us from Cincinnati, or you're in Cleveland, or you're somewhere surrounding driving distance. Not saying you would drive for us, but drive and make like a little experience out of it leading up to Combine Week. So hit us up, hashtag PFF Live, and say like, yeah, I'm interested in that, or I would go if you came to my area. We're just trying to feel this thing out. If we did kind of like the PFF NFL show on tour a little bit.
Hashtag PFF Live. Tweet us and tell us if you would show up.
So let's check it out. Let's get back to the game. What were we
where
talking
the hell
about?
were
Jimmy
we?
Garoppolo
Throwing
can't
the ball
see
linebackers. That's
Luke
it.
Kuechly's.
Linebackers.
He doesn't see linebackers, and we have some numbers to prove it.
Yes. So, as I said, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad player because Tony Romo always had that issue, right? And there's certain quarterbacks who, when they make mistakes, that's the kind of mistake they're making. And I've never really understood what it is that creates that. I've just always noticed certain quarterbacks have that in them, right? And so then, all right, you notice this, but we know that your eyes deceive you all the time. Numbers lie, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, well, let's see if the data even backs this up or if I'm just complete, talking crap.
Yeah.
So I dove into the database and, you did some filtering, changed some things. So let's take out all passes behind the line of scrimmage because, then let's take out all deep passes because most of the time those aren't linebacker things. So we're working from the line of scrimmage to the 20-yard line, targeting linebackers. When Jimmy Garoppolo targets linebackers, his turnover-worthy play rate spikes to almost 7%, which is insane, right? That's a huge number.
Yeah.
That's like that's one of the most turnover-worthy play quarterbacks in the entire NFL, right?
Yeah.
When he's targeting all other positions, non-linebacker positions, his passer rate or his turnover-worthy play rate is way smaller, right? And actually below average. Now, what's really fascinating, so first point, data point, backs that up, right? When he's targeting linebackers, more mistakes. Second data point that's interesting is the average NFL quarterback, that relationship is actually reversed. Most NFL quarterbacks, their turnover-worthy play rate goes down when they target linebackers.
See, that's the kicker, right?
Right. That makes sense, right? Because linebackers, I mean, they're not the best coverage players on the field. They're playing linebacker. So most players, their turnover-worthy play rate actually drops a couple of percentage points when they target linebackers and spikes back up when they target anybody else. So, A, his spikes to a really high degree, and B, his relationship is the complete opposite to most quarterbacks.
Yeah, and linebackers are usually, and this is what makes Kuechly's numbers that you cited so incredible, they're usually getting, two players in their zone. They're getting exploited, right? They're getting schemed up, or it's this man coverage against a running back or against a tight end, against somebody that, should be better than you.
Right.
And especially in the Shanahan scheme, we talked about last week, they do a great job of moving linebackers and, vacating the middle of the field and creating easy throws. So that's what I was saying on Monday. Is he just coming out of play action and just assuming this play is going to work? This play always works. There's nobody there. There was somebody there. Whoops.
Yeah.
So I think the Packers, what's the strategy there? Mike Pettin, defensive coordinator, has talked quite a bit about, we're not going to go stop the run as our number one priority. We're going to stop the pass, try to defend the run with fewer players in the box. So if he's going to stick to that philosophy, which he's even cited throughout the year, kind of like slow playing against the run, the same way Eric Kendricks played it, which is like, I'm not going to take 2 steps every time. I'm going to slow play it. I'm going to work until I know that there's a handoff. I'm going to play pass first. If the Packers can do that, could they steal one? Can they steal one of those Garoppolo
and that's the thing.
mistakes?
So my point was essentially, I don't think Garoppolo is a bad quarterback at all, but he is. So we're still very young into the guy's career, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, he hasn't actually played that much, so we're sort of still feeling out exactly what kind of player he is. But it's starting to look like he stylistically is kind of a game manager plus style of quarterback, right?
I'll give you a couple numbers
Okay, what do you got?
that'll describe what I think he is at this point, right? First off, I called him Matt Hasselbeck for a comp
There you go.
a couple years ago, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Matt Hasselbeck led a Super Bowl team in 2005. In 2017 and then this year, Garoppolo's 2 full seasons, he has been near the top of the league in overall positively graded throws. That year, he was like first or second. 2017, this year, he's 8th or 9th. But he has more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws in both of those seasons and during his career. That means he's taken the schemed-up stuff, which is great. You have to hit those throws. He's got a high percentage of positives. But positively graded throws are usually high when you have a good quarterback plus a system, a receiver, or whatever. Receivers, guys getting open. So he's hitting the open man. He doesn't turn it over a ton, but he has more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws.
So that's the thing, right? The game manager phrase is used as a pejorative most of the time, which I don't think is truly fair. I think it just describes a style of quarterback. And I think Garoppolo is in that bucket somewhere, right? Which is he's generally pretty good at taking all the schemed-up stuff, and sometimes he'll add some value and he'll make some plays, and he's reasonably accurate, and he's an efficient quarterback in that system. But most of those game manager quarterbacks, one of their defining characteristics is they don't turn the ball over or don't put the ball in harm's way very often at all.
It's assumed with that term, game manager.
So Alex Smith is the classic example, right?
Yep.
Really didn't make that many big plays, but was very, very good at taking care of the football. And that's the dynamic you play with. So Garoppolo makes more big plays than that, but makes a lot more turnover-worthy plays than that. And so he's not among the worst players in the NFL at that. Jameis Winston puts the ball in harm's way more than anybody. Daniel Jones is up there. Kyle Allen was amongst the worst of that, right? Those are the guys that put the ball in harm's way more than anybody else. Garoppolo's not there, but he's in that half of the quarterbacks, right? Somewhere in the top third, about the line of the top third and the middle third of quarterbacks in terms of turnover-worthy play percentage this year. So the problem with that is, yes, the offense is good. The scheme is good. They make life really difficult for a defense. But do you have that much confidence that Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to make a critical mistake which could completely swing the game? Now, it could have happened a week ago against the Vikings, but the Vikings were just overmatched across the board. But they were given the opportunity. He tried to hit Eric Kendricks one time, hit him again the second time. Like, if that was a really close game with fine margins that could have gone either way, like, that could have been the play that gave it to the Vikings. Now, it wasn't, and it might not be this week, but, even if you just look at it in simple terms of Vegas line, right? Vegas thinks this is a touchdown or a touchdown 0.5 game. one bad mistake that ends up as a pick six by Garoppolo. Now it's a coin flip immediately.
Yeah, and it's a good point. So we talked about the Titans like stealing a touchdown with a Khalif Raymond deep ball or whatever it might be. Who would have thought that's what we're talking about is like the key to the AFC Championship. But the key to the Packers is if there's that one or two mistakes per game, you got to take advantage. Like Kendricks was lucky he got a second one thrown at him.
Yeah.
But you have to take advantage.
And the other thing about that is, so both those plays by Kendricks were actually really good plays. And Kendricks, we put him on our All-Pro team this year. I think he made the actual All-Pro team, right? Didn't make the Pro Bowl, but made the All-Pro team.
Yeah, of course.
So Kendricks is a top-end coverage linebacker in the NFL. He's going to get more of those opportunities because he's putting himself in a position to do it. Blake Martinez is not that good. But Blake Martinez can catch a ball if one's fired at his face.
There's a lot of tackles.
Which is potentially what happens when Jimmy Garoppolo just doesn't see linebackers.
Blake Martinez is the most annoying player when you look at his PFF grades.
Right. He's been excellent at everything, just never at the same time.
Blake Martinez, it's like, do you ever take SATs or an equivalent over there?
I didn't, but I know what they are.
So with the SATs, it doesn't matter how many times you take it. You just take your best scores.
Yeah.
Right? I only took it once.
Huh.
So I didn't even go back to the well. Got a good score.
Yeah.
But my wife, Kelly, beat me by 10. But she took it like 3 times. So it's almost like, not fair. But you take your math, and you take your verbal, and you take your best score. If Blake Martinez took his best coverage grade, his best run defense grade, and you
like a
combine,
top 3 linebacker.
Then he's Luke Kuechly, right? Then he's like the Hall of Famer. But the same thing happened at Stanford and at Green Bay. He'd have a great year against the run, bad in coverage, and then it would flip. It was hilarious.
And conversely, if you took his worst score in all of them, he'd be Ernie Sims.
Yeah, then he's going to JUCO or something.
Right.
He's not getting into school, actually. He's ineligible, and he's Ernie Sims.
Yeah,
but,
he's a frustrating player. But my point is,
high end, he's Stanford.
Even though he's not good, if you throw the ball at his face, he's probably going to catch it and turn interception.
What if his SAT scores reflected the way he plays on the field?
That would be impressive.
Like one time he goes 800 math and 400 verbal and then flips it the next time, and Stanford's like, man, you got a 1,600. Blake Martinez, Stanford man across the board here.
All right. Are we done?
What do you mean, are we done?
This game.
I had some other stupid point I wanted to make.
Well, if you can't remember it.
Here's one other thing with Garoppolo. Right? Just when you're ready to define the guy, right? Because if you're describing his characteristics, you're like, what do you talk like? Quick release and he does quick-minded, when the offense.
I was going to go with wins games and is handsome.
Wins games. Yeah, he's very handsome. Definitely is. Wins games. That's all true. But when the offense is running well, it's like he hits the top of his drop, boom, quick decision maker and all that stuff. But he also has these bouts where he just holds it too long, and that's what reminds me of Tua, who's coming up as a prospect. Tua's got this incredible feel for the pass game, and I think Garoppolo does too. And then every now and again, something clouds their judgment, and it's like, here's this 2.2 second concept. The ball should be out, and it's 3 seconds, and I'm holding onto it, and I'm taking a sack, and there's a fumble in the pocket. Those are the other turnover-worthy plays, or just sacks in general. You sacked 38 times this year, including last week. It just takes a couple more sacks than you would like to see, and the Packers have that fierce pass rush, so they could get to him. If we're talking about a game where Garoppolo is going to fire one to a linebacker or two, and the Smith brothers, Kenny Clark in the middle, and they're going to get you 3, 4, 5 times as far as negative plays go, those are the impact plays I think the Packers are going to need if they're going to pull the upset.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he will do that. I'm just saying that he has a higher propensity for that than certainly.
Just keep an eye on it.
Certainly than any quarterback left in championship weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a handful of times, right? But you got to take advantage of that if it comes up. So I'm taking the favorites again. I'm taking the Niners. I'm expecting a Niners-Chiefs Super Bowl. What do you got?
Yeah, same. Favorites. It's boring. It's more likely than not. So.
All right. Do you want to speak generally about the free agent class?
Yeah.
And what we're getting into. We've ranked the top 50. It's up on PFF.com. We put the quarterbacks aside. We will be putting them into rankings. We have this very slick free agency tracker that's going to be unveiled, I think, next week. It looks
amazing.
It looks incredible. Our guys, as much as we lost the guys upstairs with our hate for Skyline, I just want to give them a ton of credit for making a slick-looking free agency tracker that's going to be on PFF.com as early as next week. So we'll put the quarterbacks in the rankings. And
it's being slow rolled out, though. I'm not sure you're supposed to be announcing it on a podcast.
That's why I said next week. I said, look, next week we're going to announce it officially.
Okay.
And, our folks deserve a little extra. They, Easter eggs. They're the best PFF fans, our listeners.
All right.
So, technically, Drew Brees, Tom Brady are going to be free agents.
Well, so it's a really weird class, right? Because Tom Brady is definitely going to be a free agent. Like, his contract is structured in such a way that it has to actually happen. Now, it may only happen for 10 minutes while they have a deal worked out that he needs to sign, but it will happen. Drew Brees' deal is voiding?
He's got the void. It's almost certainly going to void. I don't know if they could re-up it or not, but they are in, they just keep pushing the cap into the next year, and there might be a point where they just say, okay, we're not doing that anymore.
And I think there's an argument to be made that this would be the year.
I wouldn't. I don't think he's slowed down.
I think there's an argument to be made. I'm not saying it's. Then you have Dak Prescott, who's almost certainly not hitting the open market, because why the hell would you let him go after his best year, arguably? And, but in theory, he's a free agent, and it's heading that way, right? But they probably franchise tag him. You got Ryan Tannehill, who's coming off the best graded season in PFF this year.
Which, by the way, I'm working on a piece
limited sample size,
breaking down the biggest outlier seasons. I mean, he is officially the biggest outlier season that we've seen.
Not just that, but he is, so A, biggest outlier season, and B, all the stuff that he's phenomenal at is the stuff that regresses, right? So if anyone is primed to head back in the tank, it's him. So, but, he's played himself to the point where if you're the Titans, you kind of have to franchise tag him, right? Can you do anything else? You could sign him long term, but that would be insane.
I think
you could let him walk out the door, but that would be equally insane.
Franchise tag makes a ton of sense.
Then you've got the guy that he replaced, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, the two guys that played out the first time anybody played out their fifth-year option without a long-term deal. Those two guys are both hitting the market.
We're 5 years removed from this time of year debating who's going to be the number one pick, who's the guy. They played each other on New Year's Day and all that stuff, and they're both hitting free agency.
Teddy Bridgewater is hitting free agency, having just shown in 5 games of starting that he can be the guy he was before injury again. He hadn't completely changed and now is just a backup. He is a viable starting candidate again. Like, the quarterback market alone is nuts.
You haven't even hit on Dak Prescott.
I just hit on Dak Prescott.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Phillip Rivers.
I hadn't hit
That's
who
I meant you had. I didn't hear you say Dak. I don't listen to everything you say.
Yeah.
Dak and then Phillip Rivers, by all accounts, just like Chicago Bears, who's going to go get Jaguars, who's going to go get Phillip Rivers and say, we're going to make a legit playoff push here for a year or two. Then there's the Bridge Keenum. Nobody, he's the bridgiest of bridge quarterbacks, Case Keenum. If you need a bridge, Case is out there.
Short bridge.
He's not a top 32 quarterback in the NFL any longer, which makes him, just a bridge. That's all he is. Maybe the best backup, though. You know what else is funny? Last year, after free agency, we said which teams added the most value using our WAR metric. You know which team was number one?
Titans?
The Titans. And it was because they added Ryan Tannehill, and because the previous year Mariota got hurt and they had to trot Blaine Gabbert out there.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to the guys being like, come on, you can't take a backup quarterback and say they're the most improved because of it. And here we are.
Look
in the AFC champ. I know, look how stupid I look. People want PFF to tell you when they're wrong. I'm going to tell you when we were right, but I was wrong. For saying, the Titans were the most improved team last offseason, and you're seeing it here, AFC Championship weekend.
Other interesting impending free agents. Chris Jones, who has an argument to be known as, the best interior defender in the NFL, not named Aaron Donald.
Yep. Only 25 and a half years old, according to the website.
Amari Cooper, who, inconsistent maybe, but legit number one star wideout capabilities.
Also 25 and a half.
AJ Green didn't play at all this year, but when he's cooking, is a top wide receiver.
Way older than 25 and a half.
Correct. Anthony Harris, maybe the most underrated NFL player.
This is going to be your
coverage superstar.
Your guy from here through March, where you're pushing him.
The dude's fantastic. He's a legit All-Pro safety, and he's hitting free agency.
Playmaker who has not missed a ton of tackles.
Right.
Those are two things that I like in safeties.
Byron Jones, decent cover corner. Chris Harris, a guy maybe wants to move back to the slot, dominate inside, and be a real game changer there.
I have a place for him.
Yeah, no, I know you do. Jadeveon Clowney. Back-to-back dominant years, looking about as good as he can be right now. Hunter Henry, a little bit brittle, but when he's playing, pretty dominant. Don't forget Eli Manning.
Eli Manning's also.
Corey Littleton, one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. Defense.
Joe Schobert, same thing.
Right. Defense in this free agent class is really good. Offense, less so. Also, by the way, Derrick Henry, or as he shall be known, running back folly.
We have some critical folks saying, why is he number 28?
Yes. So
our free agent
I tried to convey this in a nuanced Twitter conversation, right?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry being ranked 28th in our free agent top 50 is not a reflection on the fact that Derrick Henry has no talent. It's a reflection on the fact that the evidence is getting overwhelming that suggests that running backs require an environment conducive to their success. They essentially need the platform to work from in order to thrive, right? And in order to get that platform, you need money. And therefore, you can't give the money to the running back that therefore doesn't have a platform to work from, right? Again, see Le'Veon Bell, see Melvin Gordon. You need the money to build the platform to then get the running back who can add the value on top of that, at which point you don't have the money to spend on the running back anymore.
You and I, over the last couple of years, have had multiple arguments with people about here's why Saquon's not worth the number 2 pick, or here's why Le'Veon's not worth the money. And generally the first response is, well, yeah, because he doesn't have a good offensive line.
Yeah.
Or yeah, because he doesn't have a good quarterback. And you're making our point.
Yeah. I'm just saying, turn the clock on 12 months' time, right? And let's assume, basically pick a team. But most of the teams that are going to have the money to spend on Derrick Henry do not have the best environment in the world for him to thrive. So let's turn the clock forward 12 months. Imagine Derrick Henry has gone to a team that doesn't have a great offensive line, that doesn't have a great offense generally, and he's had a season where he gets 1,100 yards at 4 yards per carry, broke 50 tackles, was no factor in the pass game, and it cost them $15 million in cap space to make it happen, right? Plus a whole boatload more guaranteed for the next few years. Do you regret that decision or not? Most people would probably say yes. At which point, how high can you put him in a list of free agents? It's not that we don't think he's talented. It's that we don't think his value in free agency should be very high.
The difference between his talent and the next running back could be this wide, but the difference in production could be this wide. And if you're only listening, I had my hands far apart, and then I brought them closer together when I talked about the difference in production, just to paint a picture.
It's just, look, free agency is a value-driven marketplace, and us ranking him 28th is simply a reflection that we do not believe the value of investing in a running back is very high. It should be much lower than that.
I used to go into fantasy drafts, whether it was baseball or football, and there was just certain guys I just didn't believe in. Like the numbers or the rankings or how good they are said that they were 30th or whatever it is. But when I got to that point, I was just like, do I really want to invest in this guy? Do I really want to spend a second or third round pick on him in a fantasy? So I just go to the next guy. That's kind of how I think I would treat running backs, right? Derrick Henry, you're intriguing, you're appealing. Kenyon Drake, you're appealing too as a big play threat that Sam loves in the right system. You put him in space and all that stuff. But I'm just going to have to let someone else pay you. I'm just going to let someone else draft you. I'm just going to let someone else inherit that risk. I'm not willing to take it. That's how I handle running backs.
It's not that I don't think there's any difference between the two of them. I think one of the this argument a lot of the time gets just, it's straw man stuff. It's just boiled down to simplistic sound bites, and it just gets stupid, right? It's not that I don't think there's any difference between running backs. I think there are. I think there's running backs that suit specific systems, right?
Absolutely.
My thing is simply, so Kenyon Drake, I love the fit of Kenyon Drake in that Arizona system, right? They spread everybody out wide. They even have wide offensive line splits, and therefore there's way more space for running than typically most running backs get, right? And Kenyon Drake is not uniquely, but very unusually suited to a system that gets him more space to run the ball, right? He will make a better outcome from those carries than your average running back. But when you get to the point where it's like, all right, now his contract's up and he wants $12 million a season, well, it's like, sorry, because the thing that's giving you all that production is the wide splits and the spread system and the offense. You know what I mean? Right. It's not you.
You're a great fit that I'm willing to spend like a third or fourth rounder.
You're doing
on a first contract.
Yeah, you're doing a great job of generating production in the thing that I've created, but the thing that I've created is what's determining the value, not you. So when you want $15 million a year, I'm just going to have to go looking for the next guy that will do really well in that system. And that's the same thing with Derrick Henry, right? He's doing a great job right now of maximizing the impact of really good run blocking from that offensive line and all that kind of stuff, right? But you're not the thing that's generating that. You're the thing that's working symbiotically with the blocking. And if I have to pick one or the other, I'm picking the blocking.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. Like, when we look back and it's like, well, Henry's the catalyst to this Titans team.
Nope.
Was he the catalyst when they were 2-4? Like, what changed when they were 2-4 and then became 9-7?
The quarterback.
Yes. The quarterback who played out of his skull in a way that he never had for the rest of his career, that's what changed.
Yeah.
And they have the number 2 passing attack. Henry's been there the entire season. So just at a macro view.
Also, the offensive line has gotten dramatically better from early in the season.
They have improved.
Roger Saffold looked
the run
like,
blocking, the pass blocking, it's all gotten a little bit better.
Saffold looked like a free agent disaster. He's got healthy. He's learned the system. Lewan came back. He was suspended. Am I right? Suspended, right? Not injured.
Yeah.
Start of the season. Conklin is playing better. The entire offensive line has completely transformed what it's doing.
Conklin's in free agency too, and he's one of those guys needs to be protected as a pass protector, but if you are one of those downhill running teams that wants to impose your will and all that stuff, Conklin's pretty good. One of the better run blockers, versatile run blocker as well, multiple schemes. Does things well. So we're just scratching the surface when it comes to the offseason and free agency because we have a little bit more time on our hands. We'll have a lot more in the coming weeks. So don't forget, hit us up with hashtag PFF Live if you have any interest in the PFF NFL Podcast live show at the Combine, maybe somewhere else. We'll see if we can expand that, do a little bit more interactive stuff. Really want to give back to you guys because our fans and listeners have just been amazing through the years.
Somebody just sent me a Google image search for Skyline Chili. Presumably this is the first time they've heard of it. There's one of the pictures where they've colored the spaghetti green.
What? Why?
I don't know.
Are those green noodles?
Yes.
What's happening there?
They've made the spaghetti
Oh,
green.
for St. Patty's Day.
Oh, come on.
Probably for Patty.
Don't do that.
St. Patty's Day.
Look, as an Irishman,
You should go to Skyline for their green noodles on St. Patty's
Stop
Day.
it. As an Irishman, I object to the use of that. We should not be subjected to that. I don't like the way that, by the way, that my phone woke up and Google searched Skyline Chili when we started talking about it.
It did?
Yeah.
That's what was happening there? I just kept seeing it.
No, it flashed up, and then I saw it searching Skyline. Look. Skyline Chili, local restaurants near me. I don't want that, Google. Take it away.
Find Skyline for Sam.
No.
Find Skyline for Sam. Where's the closest Skyline?
What is Skyline Chili made of? Let me click on that.
I want to know the answer now. Now, tune in next time. We'll let you know what Skyline Chili is really made of.
Google says, instead, the basic recipe includes only water, meat, and spices.
Spices.
Tourists who try Skyline Chili for the first time are often shocked by its unique blend of seasonings. which includes...
Chili, how hard could it be?
Which has been said to include cumin, Worcestershire sauce, paprika, vinegar, cloves, and something distinctly sweet.
Oh, my God.
Google, you've done well. Okay, I take it back. You can wake up and tell me about Skyline anytime you like. That's outstanding.
Skyline, not a future sponsor. Gold Star, definitely not a future
hashtag
sponsor.
At least we're not Gold Star.
At least we're not Gold Star. That'll do it.
Can we get that on a
week.
poster
Have
here?
we insulted everybody this week in Cincinnati?
No, just the local chili people.
All right. We'll be back Monday morning recapping all of the championship week action. Propercloth.com, PFF20. Go get yourself a shirt.
A custom
You guys can
fit
play me out now.
shirt. What are we playing you
Play
out
me
with?
out now. You have some music?